This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country on where this podcast is recorded. We recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today. Warning: this episode contains mentions of childhood and sexual abuse. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is impacted by sexual assault, domestic or family violence, in Australia you can call 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732 or visit 1800respect.org.au, and that information is in the show notes.
My stepdad at that time was a registered minister. So it went from like physical drug abuse to control and manipulation through religion. We had gotten into a circle prayer and he had said, I give you permission to get involved with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it was like a curse was passed over my life at that time. And looking back, I have had more life without a mom than I did with a mom. So, I mean, obviously the body keeps the score and those feelings are still there, but you just learn how to keep pressing forward and use the past to grow from and learn from and do better.
I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that reminds you of the good in the world. Each episode tells the story of someone who has found real hope in challenging times and made the world a better place. Episode 66, Jessica Clancy. I'm so excited to have Jessica Clancy actually in the room with me today, all the way from Texas. I think this is the furthest anyone has ever travelled to be on the podcast, and I'm choosing to believe that this is the sole reason for her visit and not for her book tour. Jessica worked as a hairdresser for 18 years while completing her Bachelor of Science, majoring in nutrition. She then completed her Master of Nutrition with a business minor in 2002 and has been working since 2008 as a registered dietitian. She is now a published author, and her debut book, The Quest for Family, takes readers through Jessica's life journey from a place of abuse and brokenness to one of spiritual renewal and enlightenment. And I'm so excited to talk to her about it today. Jessica, welcome to Finding Hope. I'm delighted to have you.
Hi, Miss Georgia. Thank you so much for having me on Finding Hope. I am so excited to be here, and thank you, Australia, for having me.
Oh, so thrilled to have you. I want to ask, because this is the title of the book, what does family mean to you?
I believe family is everything, and I started my book with some statistics on how family is declining, and I think just looking at the best light of family, we have to accept where we are, but try to make family wherever we are. So with broken families, broken marriages, there's a lot of brokenness now. But if we can look at the needs to others, then we can help other people and help them feel belonged and security, even where there may not be a traditional family setting. So that's one thing that I really speak to in my book. For myself, I didn't have family growing up, and people poured into my life, and they were that family for me. So that's a big part of what I wanted to share in my story. And through God's redemption, now I have the family that I never had growing up.
Oh, that's wonderful. And look, we are going to talk about that more. I want to go back to the beginning. Tell me about your childhood. What do you remember from it? How do you remember the feelings around it in your body as well? Tell me what happened.
So there is a book where the body keeps the score, and you've probably read it, and it's very true. And as I've gotten older and I've learned more about myself and understood my childhood, there's certain triggers that can surface over time, and just recognizing that and helping to deal with them before they become too monumental. But yes, in my childhood, there was a lot of pain. My mom moved multiple times. By the time I was 6, I had 3 dads, and none of them were my biological dad. And we had lived multiple places. We had lived in Bermuda, Maine, multiple states. Germany as well.
Wow.
So I was already like a world traveler by the time I was 6. And I really feel like my mom left the man that she married, Clancy, which is the name of my last name of the book, for the thrill of travel. They had only been married about a year. So, and the second husband was very abusive, and he would abuse her. And then he would also have his way with me and abuse me as well. So things were very confusing. There was a lot of abandonment, a lot of hurt. And even looking back, I know that God was with me through the whole time and really helped provide those people that I needed at the time. And
Yeah, who were some of those people?
well, things could have been a lot worse for sure, right? But some of those people, even in my high school years when I came to live with my grandmother, there were 2 families that lived next door, and they were like parents to me. And I would go sit on their couch and I would process, like, leaving my mom was really difficult. And my grandmother had me call my mom on Mother's Day, and my mom was like, "You don't exist. I don't have kids." And they were foster parents. They lived in Tennessee at the time. And I was just like, okay. I was like maybe 14 or something. So yeah, it was really hard. But now looking back, I have had more life without a mom than I did with a mom. So, I mean, obviously the body keeps the score and those feelings are still there, but you just learn how to keep pressing forward and use the past to grow from and learn from and do better. When we lived in Bermuda, you asked about people that were also the hands and feet of God. I remember going to a neighbor's house and making cookies with them, doing something that somebody didn't do with me at home, and like bringing home my prize cookies. And there was also another story in my book about living in Bermuda. They had kite flying day. And so one of the neighbor boys that was a teenager made me a beautiful kite. It had like pink and purple mache paper, and it was the shape of like an octagon, I guess. I don't know all my shapes from when I was younger, but the birchwood trees made like a cross in the center. And the day of kite flying festival, my stepdad was so angry that he threw me on the kite and smashed it to bits, and I just laid there on the floor crying, that my opportunity to be able to participate, in kite flying day had been taken from me. But I knew that somebody loved me and cared enough about me to make me a kite. And I kept that moment with me. And then when I was writing my book, I was like, what did kite flying day mean? Where did that come from? And it was actually a celebration of Jesus resurrecting. And it was a memory of that Good Friday before Easter. So it was like looking back at my story, God was there the whole time.
You've mentioned a lot about looking back, you realized that God was there, and
yes,
people were there that were being the hands and feet of Jesus. Tell me about your faith in God. Was God kind of a conscious, present thing throughout your childhood, or was faith something you came to later in life?
So, like I said, we had moved several places. There was no stability with the moves. There was no stability with dads. The neighbors always changed. The friends always changed. But in 2nd grade, we had moved to a place called Zion, Illinois. Like the song, right? Marching onward to Zion, right? And there was a family. I don't know how my mom found them, but it was a babysitter that she left me with. And they had just had a Bible. And I remember like sitting on the floor, and they were reading to me and telling me stories of Jesus and who he was and how good he was and how he could be my friend with me forever. And I was like, well, I want him to be with me. I want him to be in my heart. And of course, I was like a vulnerable, lonely, like child, right? And so I asked him to come into my heart, and I know that Jesus has been with me since then. So I would say he is somewhat of like an invisible friend, so somebody that I could talk to and be with and see in the nature and see in the beach and the fish and the sky, and just always like speak to him, and he was my escape.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. When you moved to live with your grandmother, because it was when you were around 14, did you say?
Probably 12, 13.
12, 13. Was that a choice that you made, or were you taken from your mum? Like, what was
So there were several times that, because of all the moves, that my mom would always send me to like stay with my grandma. So I always knew, and that was part of probably what helped me to be kind of see things in a different light, right? That was my escape as well. But when it actually came to happen, my grandmother had called me in school, and she said that, because my aunt was 3 years older than me and had lived with me.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So she had lived with us for a bit, and then she came back home. And I'd come to visit that summer. So when I came back to Kansas, my grandma was in Texas. We were living in Kansas at the time. So I came back to start school, and my grandmother had called me and said, hey, I'm going to come get you. We'll just tell your mom that I need help with chores and you can stay with us, because she had known of the abuse through my aunt.
Right.
So the school had called me out of the class to speak with her on the phone. Well, that weekend, there was like a big dispute with my mom and my stepdad, and I went to CPS care. And my grandmother then retrieved me from CPS. But at that time, she had taken me back to the house, and my stepdad at that time was a registered minister. So it went from like physical drug abuse to control and manipulation through religion. We had gotten into a circle prayer, and he had said, I give you permission to get involved with sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
What?
So it was like a curse was passed over my life at that time. And my grandmother had then brought me to Texas, in which I've been in Texas since that time.
Yeah,
So.
I was going to say, so there was more stability after
Yes.
you moved in.
To
with your
some
grandmother.
degree,
Yeah.
yes. But when I was 17, my aunt that was 3 years older than me had gotten pregnant. And so my parents came into town for my graduation day and sat me down with my grandmother. And I was like, I worked like 3 jobs. I was very independent. I had honor school, graduated like honor graduation in high school. I was in cosmetology, cutting hair. And they sat me down and said, you need to leave. You've never done anything and you need to go. Be self-sufficient. So when I was 17 on my graduation day, I was kicked out.
Oh my gosh.
So,
What
yeah.
happened from then?
So
Cutting hair, I'm guessing, isn't enough to...
I was not making enough money at the time. So the only rested assurance, and which was really crazy, if I can back up for a minute.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and I know we had lived in multiple places. We lived in North Carolina at the time because my stepdad was in the Navy.
Right.
And so my mom used to cut my hair, and it was intriguing to me. Like, I just thought, oh, that would be so nice. And then my hair was straight and got curly and kind of frizzy, and kids made fun of me, of course. I never belonged anywhere. My mom had like this old cosmetology book, really old, like from the 70s. And I took it to school, and I'm like, I'm going to cut hair one day. It was like God speaking to me. Like, I knew I was going to cut hair. So I took this book to school. I'm looking through it, studying in between classes. And the kids were like, cosmonaut, you'll never cut hair. And I'm like, no, I'm going to cut hair one day. So the crazy thing was, moving from North Carolina to Kansas to Texas, my aunt's best friend was in cosmetology. So I didn't even know they had a cosmetology program. So I was accepted, like 20 kids out of 600 into the program. So when I was kicked out that day, I did have a good job with an influential hair salon. It was actually a Fortune 500 company. I was not making any money because I had no clientele established, but I knew I had a job. And I had a boyfriend at the time, but he was just the same as my parents. I felt like it was the first person that loved me, and he was smoking marijuana and aggressive, and I had no other place to go. So it was like the curse was in action. So I did live with him for a couple of years until I was able to be on my own, and he never changed. So
Tell me more about hairdressing. You were a hairdresser for 18 years, and I am so interested in this because hairdressing for me, I feel like, well, here in Australia at least, it's like people unload on their hairdressers, right? It's like sometimes it's the only place where I'm thinking like mums, women especially who are, don't have any time to themselves. Your hair appointment is like the time where you invest in yourself and you can just like unload on whatever's happening in your family, in your job, et cetera, et cetera. I know a lot of people that like their hairdressers are like their therapist/best friend.
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Did you find that was the situation for you and your clients?
I absolutely loved my clients. It was a very upscale salon. So a lot of people were very upscale, very influential, very educated. Compact was right down the street. The computer company,
yes.
was right down the street. So we had a lot of people who would come during their fabulous lunch times that they had. Like, they probably only worked
their long lunches.
Exactly. They probably only worked like half days, and they would come down. And so I had a lot of very influential people, and they really took me under their wing, and they really helped me kind of process life more, and they helped me with college. Like they had science degrees. I'm like, I don't understand chemistry, because I never took it in high school. And so they would like talk to me like, okay, they would explain some of the classes. It was like tutoring, and I watched them have their babies and the kids grow up, and they knew that I didn't have family. They would invite me to their house, and I would go to like 6 people's houses on Christmas Day.
That's so
and
great.
I watched the kids grow up, and they invited me to take vacations. I mean, it was just amazing. It was like the hands and feet of God again, right? Even after I started hair cutting in 1990 when I graduated from high school, of course, before then. Actually, I found out there was a contract that I signed because I started when I was 17. I didn't turn 18 till September. That contract wasn't even legal at the time. I mean, another hand of God, right? So it was just kind of funny how it all worked out. But they were my clients, and I watched their kids grow. And it was funny because when I met my husband, he was 8 years younger than myself. And so I was 33, he was 25. And I remember kids that were like 8 on the little booster seats, and now they're like in college or his age. And I was like, I can't date you. You're like my clients, you know.
Imagining him in a booster seat.
Yeah, it was like dating my clients' kids, you know. And I'm like, this is just too weird, you know. And we met, actually, not to get off on a tangent, but we had met in a Bible study class. But yeah, my clients were amazing. And I mean, I heard some kind of crazy stories that aren't even worth mentioning, but overall, they were really wonderful people. And yeah, I'm so thankful. And they were the family I needed at the time that I needed it. God knew what I needed, and they helped me grow and become really a part of who I am now, too. So even when I left to go on a 6-month backpack trip in 1996, many of them were very sad, but very excited for me to go. And they waited for me. They came back. So I had like a 70 to 80% request, which means like 7 to 8 out of 10 clients would request my services and come back to visit me. And so when I came back from my trip, they were so excited to like hear about my travels and working in London. And so, yeah, it was just amazing.
Oh, that's so great. Now, you mentioned that your clients would tell you all about your science classes, and you're like, you have no idea about chemistry.
Yes.
And here you are studying Bachelor of Science, majoring in nutrition. What actually drew you to that in the first place?
So just like hair, you know, I wanted to become a hairdresser to help people because I was ostracized because of my physical appearance. And so I felt like if I could understand hair and like help people feel beautiful about themselves, like I could change the world, right? So the same thing with being a dietitian. Many people would laugh at me and scoff at me. And I felt very self-conscious, like about my body shape. And, you know, in the 80s and 90s, I think looking at myself, my shape or whatever, I mean, I was normal, but kids were smaller people. I felt they were smaller and they were athletic and I wasn't. And so I was always really, of course, just self-conscious about everything about myself. And the boyfriend had beat me in the end. And I had left. So I knew that I never wanted to be in that situation where somebody could hit me again, and like my mom, and be prey to that. So I was like, I'm going to go to the gym. So I started going to the gym, and actually this bodybuilder took me under his wing and started teaching me like how to exercise and how to do weights. I started studying like nutrition and wanting to eat right and learn how to eat because my mom had like binge eating, yo-yo weight dieting that I watched growing up. And so I was like, well, I want to learn about nutrition and how to eat, and then I can help others. I had no idea what I was getting into. Because with nutrition, you have to do like 1,000 hours of free work to get your certification. And without that, you can't get a job. But God knew, and it happened. He made it happen again. So it's just wonderful. Amazing.
And now you've been a registered dietitian for 16 years by the time this airs. What do you love most about your job?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I just love helping people. I do work in dialysis, so a lot of my patients are comorbidities that are terminal. And we have been fortunate to have some patients get transplants. We have been fortunate to have some patients have live babies. I've had, which is very rare to have a baby on dialysis.
Wow.
Yes, 2 people. And it really comes down to like nutrition and eating well to prevent further disease states and to help them live longer and healthier with their families. So if they don't eat right, then it can affect their bone health and they can have more falls and bone breaks. And usually because of calcification in the body, once that happens, they become really frail and their life expectancy decreases. So being able to help them live longer, healthier lives with their family is and hearing their stories, kind of like being in the hair salon, on the opposite side of the chair, right? Because they're dialyzing. Hearing their stories of their time with their family is very special to me.
That's so wonderful. Jessica, let's talk about your book. Quest for Family. I am just so thrilled that you've written this. Your stories definitely needs to be written down.
Thank you.
Did you always want to write your story?
I never had an idea that I would write until when I would cut hair, people would say, you need to help others, you should write a book. And so I didn't really think much of it. But when I was in a very dark time, and I was really searching for God and his protection and going to church. And the pastor had said that someday you'll write a book. So it was
How long ago was this?
That was like in the early 2000s when I was like in my internship in grad school and going through like a really bad relationship as well, different kind of spectrum relationship, which you can read about in the book, Battle of the Ghost.
Okay.
Yeah, carrying those words. When I met my husband, we were in Bible study, and I was like, I'm going to write a book someday. And he was like, okay, and I'm like, it gave me hope in a very dark place just to share my story. So I would always think about the future and however bad and however upsetting it was what I was going through, that someday I could share that with somebody to help save somebody, to have hope, to have something to look for in the future. And that really brought me through those dark times. And it was kind of funny because my husband would kind of make jokes. He's like, okay, hon, when are you going to write that book?
You promised.
I know, right? And one time, they always say, like, God says he'll put something in your heart to do, and that's your passion, right? Like your purpose. And I knew it was my passion and my purpose, but it wasn't like, it was all in my head, the writing. If you don't do it, God will send somebody else to do it, right? So one night I had a dream, and I woke up in the morning and I was like, I know the name of my book. My husband's like, what is it? My Story, My Song. It's going to be My Story, My Song. He's like, no, somebody already wrote it. I'm like, no, this is what God showed me. You don't understand. And so he pulled out his phone and he looked it up and he's like, somebody already wrote it. And it was like that year, right? And I was like, okay, God, what are you telling me here? He was preparing me to start writing. He's like, if you don't do it, somebody else will. And it was just, so that was in August. Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away in September. She was buried on my birthday, 9/11. And the day when she was in the hospital before she passed away, I had told her that I couldn't call her weekly because I would basically tell her my story, right, every week. And she knew I would write a book. So I said, Grandma, I won't be able to call you. I don't want to get emotional because she was my rock, my grandma in Kansas. I said, I won't be able to call you weekly and talk to you, so I will start writing. And in January, I had COVID and started writing. And she's like, I know you will, honey. And that was her last words, and she loved me.
And once you started that process, what was the writing process like? Because writing a book requires a lot of discipline. You're working full time. You have a family.
Yes.
How did you go about this?
It was amazing. It was a God thing for sure, because I knew I was sick. And I told God, I was like, okay, God, you told me to write a book, since August. I'm like, when do you want me to start writing this book?
Why are we starting when I have COVID?
I know, right? And my husband had already bought like these 2 big poster boards, and I had like a notebook computer for like 4 years. So it was kind of funny. But I said, God, if I have COVID, I will write. I see this as a sign, I will write. And I had the worst pounding headache, and my body was like, your body's tired.
The COVID headache. And
yes.
Yep, I get it.
And it just started pouring out of me. And when I started with the outline. There's 3 sections to my book. The first part is getting past the past, the dark ages. And I just started writing an outline, and it just flowed. And 8-9 months later, it was done. But it was like it was so spiritual. It was such a spiritual journey. It was like the Christmas Carol. It was as if God was taking me back in time and walking me through my lifeline as if I was there again. And I could see it. It was so crazy and so amazing. Like, I felt so close to him in writing, and it was really a neat experience. I wish I could feel like that every day. And I got like maybe 40-50% of the book done and had an outline pretty much for the whole book. And I would write it at night, on my phone. The kids, everybody's in bed. I'm like writing my book.
Your notes app.
and documents.
Yeah.
My husband taught me how to use Google Documents. I still have a problem logging into it, but I mean, you'd be amazed that I even wrote a book on a phone. So I know he laughs at me all the time when I can't even use the basic software, but like I said, it's going to be the hand of God, but yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Jessica, who is this book for? Who did you have in mind when you wrote this?
Initially, I didn't have anything in mind. I just wanted to get it out there and share. But now, as I've been outside of the emotion of writing and seeing it through other people's eyes, like you would say, looking through the glass, I feel that a lot of people can really benefit from it because I see more marriages are in decline and more people have broken families. They have mixed families. And there's a lot of hurt and a lot of questions, a lot of belongingness. People don't even know their real dads. And I know what that's like to not know where you come from, who you look like, how you act. I know what that's like, and just to help people feel connected and to know that they're not alone, and for other people on the outside of that to recognize, like with that single mom, or to recognize that kid that looks lost, that may be getting in trouble in school, to like step in and bake cookies with them or help them or be that voice to let them talk and, you know, share what they're going through. Even in a normal family, I mean, it's hard when both parents work. And sometimes kids may even feel siblings, you know, or maybe they feel they need an outsider, a mentor, you know, be that mentor for kids or to help others, you know, that can make the world a different place.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the book details how we find healing through hard times, how you found healing.
Yes.
And I know you have a lot of tips in the book. Would you share just a couple of your top ones now, maybe for those that are going through a difficult time trying to get through that healing process?
Yes. So at the end of most of the chapters, I do have like a little scroll, like a little word of wisdom and words of encouragement. So some things that really helped me besides the people. When there was the religious abuse, I really want to credit Beth Moore. I don't know if you're familiar. She's an American evangelist that used to focus on women, but she writes a lot of Christian workbooks that really help you dive into the Bible and really help you dive into yourself. And that brought a lot of healing for me. There was a workbook called Breaking Free that was really helpful. A Woman's Heart, Fruits of the Spirit, just understanding all of those things really helped overcome that religious abuse and help me feel more comfortable in church, you know, again. Also, music. I love music. And even when I get anxious at work or any place, like I really love music, especially Christian. When I was younger, it would have been like classical when I was studying Mozart. And it really, research now shows that it can cause healing in the brain. And the music would be my prayers. And I really feel like as an artist is singing that they say when two or more come together, it shall be done in my name. And there's been many times where I've listened to music and the songs that are also scripture in many of the songs, reciting those through prayers in my mind and my spirit and my soul, that I feel really connected to God. And it was in a distraction from what I was going through. So it helped recondition my brain and take me away from the hard places. And then also nature. And even with our own family, just to get out and travel to Australia or travel. No, we have an RV and we do go camping, and to be able to just get out in nature where I can feel God's presence, where it's calm and peaceful, and, you know, connecting with the animals is like God's talking to us through the animals and through the rivers and the sky and the stream. And just, you know, anybody can go for a walk and be outside. Anybody can turn on the music that you choose to listen to can be healing. And even with RVing, we have a chapter on helping people cultivate family. We had 2 RVs that we rented, and a little boy wrote us a note saying that that was the best vacation that they ever had, and just the simple things in life and how good it was for him and his family. And the mom was like, I didn't know he left, because I had a journal where people could write their own notes. And the mom was like, I didn't even know that he wrote that letter. So it was just very sweet, like helping people cultivate family. And those are some of the things. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Tell me about your family that you have created for yourself, with your wonderful husband and your kiddos. I'm so excited to have met them today. Tell me about them.
Yes. So my husband and I, 2007, the years go so fast, and he always gives me a hard time because we've been married like 16, 17 years. My son, was it was very difficult to have my son, which I talk about in the book. So when you ask who may benefit from my book, we had infertility issues. We had lost 2 babies, and then I had a tubal pregnancy that was misdiagnosed, where I was sent home to die, sent home from the hospital twice, actually. So after that had happened, they had told us we couldn't have kids, and a year later we had my son. So he's my miracle baby. During the writing of the book, he actually was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So going through that journey, and I still finished writing. Our daughter, I always knew in my heart that God meant for us to have more kids. I didn't know what that would look like. So we were able, through our church, to become foster parents, and we were able to go through the process after 2 other placements and then adopt my daughter. So she came to live with us when she was 15 months, and she's 8 now. And then my mother-in-law, which I just truly love, she's been the mom that has done things for me that I never had in a mom, and I'm very grateful. Since my husband's dad had passed away, we promised her that we would always keep her with us and travel. And a lot of times we're like, you're going to go camping with us. So we've been to like Wyoming and the RV, and she usually likes it. But, we each set our own boundaries, and she gets to go to the casinos on the way, and and we go to the beaches and we have fun. But yeah, she's like the mom that even the simple things that she does to help our family, like I'm very fortunate and very thankful for the help that she gives us. So yeah.
That's great. Jessica, healing is a lifelong process, as
yes.
you are fully aware. What strategies do you kind of have in place now to kind of help you cope and bring up difficult emotions when inevitably they do arise, whether that's from the past or from the present?
Yes. We live very close to our church. We ride bikes to church.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yes. And so it's actually kind of funny. We go to church a lot because I feel like whenever there's difficulty, I don't know how to parent. I didn't have good role models. And the best way to learn how to be the best that I can is through the teachings of my church, which I absolutely love. And I know I'm going to fail. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect by any means, but I don't want my kids to look to me. I want them to trust God and look to Him and let them build their own relationships and their own ideas with their Father. So church is absolutely like our saving grace. One time our kids were like, why do we have to go to church so much? And we're like, well, do you want mommy and daddy to get along? And they're like, yeah. And we're like, well, church teaches us how to do that. So we are very involved in our church, and there's women Bible studies, there's men Bible studies, there's book studies. We've been fortunate to be part of the fostering group, the first pilot group. We were fortunate to be part of, Married with Kids Bible study. When our son was little and he was very sickly, it really helped us know that that was normal. We were part of a marriage class, so we got to facilitate a Bible study class for 4 years. We were also part of a community group pilot program, having Bible studies in your house. So we're really involved in our church, and that really brings a lot of healing for us and keeps us on the right path. So
yeah, how did you find the transition of back into like a healthy church after dealing with religious abuse?
Really starting in a singles group and then doing the Beth Moore studies really helped a lot.
Just that one-to-one, kind of that small.
Yes. And then when I did go back to church, it was really like a mega church in Houston. And it was very, there's varying degrees of intimacy with God and relationship and studying the Bible. And, they say when we come in with our salvation, it's like babies and we live off the milk, right? But as we get older, we grow in the scripture and we gain wisdom and we learn more about what God is teaching us and how to live, right? So the church that we went to had an outline, and it was very concise, and it was comforting because it was like almost like a show. I don't want to say God is a show, but it was very different than the situation that I had with my parents. And, as God was healing me through the Bible studies and the one-on-one with the groups where we were able to share what we were going through in the singles group, even when I met my husband, we were both in really dark places, and we both were able to God used both of us to heal those dark places. So I was kind of walking through exploring church with him at that time as well.
I feel like also on the flip side of healing, it can be seen as this, serious, hard thing, which it is, don't get me wrong, right? You deal with a lot of difficult emotions, but so much healing, especially from childhood trauma, is about finding joy in your inner child again, and it almost like just trying to tap back into that version of yourself.
Yes.
How do you find joy in your life?
Oh, I love traveling. I love working. I love traveling. I probably always go too fast. I'm sure that need to slow down more. It's like a fast-paced life that we have. And, one of those things was just slowing down and being with my grandma in Kansas. That was really special. But really, like finding joy, church, camping, being outside, trying to enjoy those moments. And as my kids are getting older, they're getting involved in more activities, which I didn't do when I was younger. So really trying to slow down and be engaged and watching them grow and develop into who they are. Appreciating their gifts is also, being a child through them, like you said, in a sense. So, and I don't want to say that I'm living through my children. Like my daughter was in dance class, she's in drama, she's in flag football. My son loves basketball. So any famous basketball people, contact me. He would love that. But, just, I guess, living vicariously through my kids as well. Mm-hmm. So learning how to do that because I didn't have that.
Jessica, it has been a pleasure. To finish up, I want to finish with some quite sobering statistics from here in Australia. 40% of Australians between 16 and 65 are affected by domestic violence in some way or another. 32% of those have experienced physical abuse and 31 have been impacted by emotional abuse. Every one of those numbers is a story, and some listening may not even be aware that they're experiencing abuse. They may be listening to this podcast and kind of thinking, oh, maybe some of those things are applicable in my own life. What advice and encouragement would you give to those who are walking this journey?
It's hard to recognize when you're in that situation because a lot of times a perpetrator will make you feel like you're the person and you're the problem. But I'm hoping that people that read my book will recognize they're not the problem and that they can speak to somebody because there's shame that the perpetrator will put over your life. And it's very hard to come forward and talk about it, especially when you don't understand what's happening and you blame yourself. But by talking to somebody and understanding what you're going through brings light to it, and it brings light to the darkness. And there's healing. I want people to know there is healing in talking about the things and the events that you're going through and to get help. If you can talk to somebody you trust, whether it's somebody at your church or a neighbor, seek professional help if you can. Don't be ashamed to come out of the darkness into the light, and God will bring you healing. And there may be people that he sends your way. Just look up and be aware, pray, and he can send you those signs and he can send somebody to rescue you.
Well, The Quest for Family by Jessica Clancy is out now. You can find out more on your website. That is jessicaclancyperseveres.com.
Yes.
That information will be in the show notes. But Jessica, it has been a pleasure having you on Finding Hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much to Jessica Clancy for bravely and generously sharing her story today. The Quest for Family is out now. You can find out more information at jessicaclancyperseveres.com, and The Quest for Family is available on Amazon internationally, and all that info will be in the show notes as well. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. To help this podcast reach more people, you can rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend who might need a little extra hope right now. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Psalm 27, verse 10. Catch you next time. Next episode, join me as I sit down with Danny Shannon, a former heroin addict and prison escapee who turned his life into one of advocacy and hope for those going through recovery.
The turning point for me was Town Hall Station. King's Cross was to my right. I had money on me. I was going to buy heroin and cocaine. This is my deal. I was doing it. I'm about to get on. But across the road was a 431, was the bus that was going to take me back to rehab. And that day, for the very first time in my life, I thought about my decision to do it. Like, an addict doesn't change their mind. If they're about to get on, they just get on. Well, that day, finally, after 49 attempts, I thought, if I go up there, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to end up back in rehab, back in jail, dead, or what would happen if I got on that bus and went back to rehab. And that day, somehow a miracle happened. I didn't pick up that next drug, and one day at a time, one foot in front of the other,